little levity. Now we got to get to what's really pissing me off, which is the railroad workers. And we're going to stand with the rail workers. Shout out to Sabby Sabs for having them on this week to hear their voices.
Yep.
Also to our friends over at Do Dissidents for having them on as well over the last couple of weeks. Let's take up the railroad workers' fight for paid sick leave. We all need it, right? So this is a hopeful, come on guys, rah rah, but it's a little bit more than that because of this, right? So here's all our workers in Boston. This is Lily Meyersohn over at Truthout. Truthout's an indie media award-winning outlet. Go follow them. But now we've got, people paying attention to paid sick leave. So, paid sick leave was brought to the forefront of U.S. discourse this past week. Under the imposed deal, workers receive no paid sick days. We know this. 4 unions had already voted against the contract. And then Congress's move comes after massive layoffs undertaken by railroad companies. Railroad bosses, of course, who've taken in $200 million themselves in compensation in 3 years, laid off nearly a third of the workforce of the 7 Class 1 railroads. We've covered this pretty extensively, right? And so, in essence, rail bosses have created this crisis by putting workers under increasing strain while refusing to offer benefits in return, including paid sick days. However, although Senate Democrats failed to push through this last-minute measure to add 7 days of paid sick leave, which we know was just a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, and it was stripped out in order to allow them to try to save face and say that they at least tried to push it through, even though they really didn't and knew it was going to fail. Bernie released a statement saying he was proud of the House-passed legislation, which is okay. Thanks, Bernie.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. At the time of record-breaking profits for the rail industry, it is disgraceful that railroad workers do not have a single day of paid sick leave. Well, yes, he vowed to do everything he can to make sure that rail workers in America are treated with dignity and respect, except for hold up the bill entirely. I could have done that, but no, I'm not going to do that. Okay. Next. On December 1st, Railway Union source told The Intercept that the next phase of the fight, ready for this one? You want to talk shit, Liberty, would be to demand that Biden include rail workers in an upcoming executive order that would mandate 56 hours of paid sick leave for federal contractors. This sounds great. Advocates added that all organizing should go toward that executive order. No.
They had us the first half, I'm not going to lie.
Right? Oh, dude, that's good. So all organizing should go toward the what? No. The labor disputes over paid sick days have come to this point. Is no surprise, right? Rail unions have been agitating for sick pay for years long in the years-long bargaining process. But throughout the pandemic, too, progressive public health experts and advocates have sounded the alarm for increased access to paid sick leave. Pandemic paid sick leave expired in December 2020, leaving the country without a federal paid sick leave program. The U.S. is one of the only high-income countries in the world without paid sick leave. Now advocates say, in light of renewed public attention on the issue due to rail union statements, is the time to make strides towards federal legislation for rail workers and for the millions of U.S. workers, except that there's only one thing. Yes, these policies are absolutely necessary for the workers' economic health and well-being. Yes, I agree, except that there's no incentive for the wealthy to do so, and they're not going to do it. So, Julia Reifman, who is an assistant professor at Boston University School of Public Health, she's tracked states' policies to mitigate COVID since the start of the pandemic. She said people who need the most paid sick leave are the least likely to have it. 100% true right there. That is a totally true statement. Can't argue with it. Indeed, work absences due to COVID and other illnesses tend to disproportionately affect Black, Latinx, and low-income workers and women. Of course, they're the ones that had to go to work during the pandemic, of course. In Rafin's prior work with the Urban Institute, she found that when people reported missing work due to COVID-related illnesses or caregiving, they also reported food insufficiency. Well, of course, when you don't have money to earn, you don't have money to go buy food. Yeah, that's how it works. People with low wealth have little flexibility to meet their immediate needs when they miss work due to illness. Paid sick leave, she argued, is thus a policy that helps people avoid a health and an economic hit. It's really important that paid sick leave policies cover low income, self-employed, and part-time workers. Yeah, thanks. So, late last month, she asserted that instead of blocking the rail strike, Congress should focus on expanding paid sick leave by passing the Healthy Families Act, which is H.R. 2465. Well, what's that? Well, it's a piece of proposed
Something
sick
that
day.
probably won't lead to healthy families. I'm betting.
Well,
usually that's how House bills are titled.
Welcome to Congress, right?
Name it the opposite of what it does.
It's opposite bill day. So H.R. 2465 is a piece of proposed sick day legislation which would require employers with 15 or more employees to provide up to 56 hours of paid sick leave in a year. Yay. It's been introduced in every Congress since 2004. But the bill's currently stalled in the House. Like it always is. It's just one of those things to just put on the books to say for veneer purposes, for platitudes. Discussion of paid sick days is mainly focused on the benefits to workers once they get sick. But sick leave policy is also strongly correlated with preventative health benefits that can keep them from getting sick in the first place. Yes, going to the dentist, going for your annual physicals, all these things. I mean, the company I worked for, they gave you time off and they gave you the hours back, but the rail workers are not getting any of that. Sick workers get to stay home and recover, and they don't risk infecting coworkers. Studies have shown that requiring employers to provide paid sick days reduces the spread of flu and other airborne illnesses, reduces emergency room visits by 1.3 million annually. In what? Globally? I mean, that's a pretty big number, and I'd have to look at the study. But emergency pandemic paid leave helps slow the spread of COVID by roughly 15,000 cases per day. Okay. So she, alongside her colleagues from BU and Drexel, recently found that paid sick leave policies are also strongly associated with increased vaccination rates because they may make it easier for workers to get vaccinated. Since vaccination decreases morbidity, mortality, and long rates of COVID, strengthening paid sick leave policy can lead to a positive domino effect for workers and lessen the associated economic impacts of illness-related work absences. I would again add to the most vulnerable people. And I don't think that they're intending that, but I will add that caveat. But they also found that vaccination coverage may be 17% higher in cities with paid sick leave policies compared to cities without such policies, which is kind of interesting, right? Study came out of the Big Cities Health Coalition, which is a group that connected some of the largest health departments in the country to combat COVID inequities. Researchers examined national and city-level data on vaccination coverage, paid sick leave policies, and social vulnerability across 37 cities, representing 20% of the U.S. population. This is a pretty broad study. This is the kind of study I like to see and actually put weight on, because this is like serious, right? This is not taking a sample like the freaking networks do, right? Alina Shankimal, Raifman's co-author and assistant professor in the Urban Health Collaborative and the Department of Health Policy and Management at Drexel, said that coalition investigated why COVID disparities differ across cities, and this question compelled the group to look at the policies that affect vaccination rates, including paid sick leave. Regardless of whether a city has paid sick leave or not, socially vulnerable neighborhoods have lower vaccination rates, of course. But Shankimal emphasizes that in cities with a comprehensive paid sick leave policy, her group saw a smaller gap in vaccination between the least and most socially vulnerable neighborhoods, meaning that the policy also works to lessen the disparities within cities. Group defined vulnerability based on the CDC, index, which the authors conclude that paid sick leave may indirectly reduce disparities, not only in COVID-19 exposure, but also the burden of illness and death by increasing vaccination among cities' most vulnerable residents. Well, if you provide paid sick leave and you provide health care, amazing what happens. People actually take advantage of it. The authors find that in 22 cities with paid sick leave that were analyzed in the study, the median percentage of vaccinated residents aged 18 to 64 was 73% compared to only 66.5% in cities with paid sick leave policies. Approximately 73% for the podcast. It was 73.2. This discrepancy held up even after controlling for a host of other factors that might contribute to higher vaccination rates, such as county and state level election result data and the political party of the state's governor. It's not just about how progressive a city is. All the models show that paid sick leave correlates with higher vaccination. So if you're focused on getting people vaccinated, you should be advocating and pushing for paid sick leave is, I think, the messaging here. So,
Yeah.
so Schnacky
Which is
Mall,
not great.
well, again, we want people on
But-
board for whatever reason they want to get on board.
Sure.
And even ones we disagree with in theory, because we're not for mass vaccination, at least for this. Again, I listened to an ad on the radio
Right, is
today
this-
that said
if they possibly means test paid sick leave through
they literally were advertising
vaccination status.
Wait a minute, they were literally advertising, get your shot for the original COVID and the original Omicron strain on the radio. They were telling you that's what it was for. Okay. The COVID vaccination is safe and effective, as our friend Jimmy Dore likes to say.
Is that like when like new Coke
Thank you, YouTube.
went back to being like old Coke?
Right? But there are also states that haven't passed them, actually prohibited cities from passing new expanded policies. These statewide preemptions, which are often tied to minimum wage laws, inhibit the benefits for low income and communities of color, 100%. Absent federal policy, we also have the option for states to rescind these preemptions and allow cities to pass policies that would benefit public health and decrease disparities. That's not going to happen. So there's a federal law that's there that they could pass right now that they're not going to. Why? She emphasized broader federal action. Again, we need to aspire to do better across the whole country. Agreed. I mean, while the federal government has failed to move
Yeah, but
paid sick
how?
leave, what do you mean how? Well, the first thing is
What do you mean, what do you mean now?
you require any federal contractors to have paid sick leave. That's the first thing that you do. It's been on
Sure.
the books. I mean, they could
Yeah.
just vote for that right now and pass that in a week if
But
they want, but they're not going to. So what do?
right.
How do you
Yes.
force the employers? Well, withhold labor is usually the way that I like to do it, but that's
Yeah.
a
use
last
some of the power that you actually have.
resort.
Unless it's
apparently,
illegal.
in most cases. Oh, especially when it's illegal.
And then or you
only
can just do it and see what happens.
Well, you can, and there's a lot of big risk there, and some people are willing to take that risk, others are not. That's the problem, is that not everybody is willing to take that risk. Anyway,
Mhm.
it's imperative here that the federal government does it. That is the only way to reach everybody, and it's like, with the CARES Act, with all of this, they were saying the only way to do this universally is to do it universally, because if you try to start picking and choosing, you're never going to get everybody to do anything. Biden campaign on Build Back Better, a bill whose original proposal set aside $200 billion toward paid sick leave. So we all know what happened to Build Back bullshit. The American public voted for him based on that platform. No, they didn't. Stop. And as much as the August 2021 passage of the IRA was a victory, no, it wasn't. The law left out the law left out policies that are key to a robust social safety net, like paid sick leave. Of course it did. We still have a lot to do on that front.